There, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is a new poll that has got absolutely devastating result for the Nats and has flung up a figure I'd never considered before, and is actually looking at how many people have walked away from the SNP and voting for them since the last election. And it's pretty frightening if you're John Swinney and that mob. But me, big smile, because it looks cracking. And I know it's only polls, but it gives us an indication, and a good indication in the direction of travel. It might not be 100% accurate at the end of the day, but it will be close, and it will be certainly showing things the right way. And when I dug into the figures, one thing that I found was a bit ironic was there have only two parties in the whole of the United Kingdom that have got less votes now than they had at the last election, and one is obviously Tories, and the other one is the SNP. Every single other party, bar none, will see an increase in their seats after the election. Now that, to me, is a cracking sign that not only are people sick of the Tories and they've had power for about 12 years, but more importantly for me living in Scotland, the same can be said for the Scottish Parliament, where SNP have had control for 17 years. So the end is nigh. It's coming, and it's coming quick. Because by the time we get to a Scottish election, which I hopefully will be within the 2 years, I hope they don't actually survive the 2 remaining years they've got in power. So we could go to the polls earlier than normal. And the direction of travel that's going to be seen here will be incredible. And they will inevitably lose power in Holyrood as well, because they had to cling on to a friendship with the Greens to give them power at the last Scottish election. So stay tuned. So the Scottish Daily Express have recorded the SNP and John Swinney facing general election decimation as new poll shows a quarter of Nats voters are abandoning the party. Think about that for a minute. 25%. And I actually think it might be worse by the time we get to the polling day, because every day I speak to more and more Nats, I see them on social media, and they have had enough of the SNP. It's incredible what's happening here. It's just a move away from the status quo, and people are scunnered, to use that good Scottish word. So a new poll predicts it will be a nightmare night for the Nationalists as they are reduced to less than a third of their current MPs, including a Glasgow wipeout. Now, if that happens, that would be phenomenal. And that whole middle bit, for those that don't live in Scotland, in the central belt between Glasgow, that big band between Glasgow and Edinburgh, that's where most of the people live. So that's where the vast majority of our constituencies are, the vast majority of our MPs come from. And if that goes back to the way it used to be when I was a kid, and it was just a big red, a few blue dots in it, they're in for a terrible, terrible doing. John Swinney is facing a general election decimation in July 4 as new polling outlined a nightmare scenario for the First Minister. YouGov put the Nationalists 6 points behind Labour and revealed that a quarter of Nat voters in 2019 had now abandoned the party for Sir Keir Starmer. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think there'll be a lot going elsewhere as well, it'll probably spread across most of the parties, and obviously a lot of these polls don't factor in Alba for some strange reason, and where they're putting, I think they've got 20 candidates. Obviously some of the SNP followers are nationalists, I mean, all of them are nationalists, but a lot of them might be moving to Alba so they can still, be conscious in their vote that they're voting for a separatist party. So here we go. And according to the electoral calculus, it could reduce the SNP down to just 15 seats. Now, I stated well before the election was called that by tactically voting and trying to bankrupt the SNP, I would be delighted if they ended up with between 20 and 25 seats, because that would half what they had previously. Any poll that's shown less than 20 is getting me a bit excited, but I'm still going to stand by. I will be happy with 20 to 25, and anything south of that will be absolutely fantastic. So that's a huge drop from the 48 Nicola Sturgeon won in 2019. This would also mean a catastrophic loss of short money. This is the stuff I keep telling people about for the already financially struggling party, which is relying on donations from dead people. Now, I've been telling people this for months. they are a party that lost £800,000 the last time there was books published, and there's a new set coming up soon within weeks of the election. We'll see the latest financial position for the SNP. But the £1.2 million of their income is short money. That's money given by Westminster to help the opposition parties just, function. So if you half the amount, and they also take in ministerial levy, which is about £600,000 on their accounts, that's money they take off their parliamentarians out their wages, right? So that's 1.8 million, give or take a couple of quid, that they bring in from, providing parliamentarians. So if the Scottish nation can have that, they would have the amount of money they get to run. And that would have a devastating effect on them. Now, these figures suggest that it might be even better picture than I've been painting for the last 6 months. And I would be delighted. They might not even get to a Scottish election if they run out of so much money, because they're skint. What else does it say? It's also bad news. I've got that. Tories are going to lose about 11% share of the Scottish vote. Mr. Ross said in areas across Scotland like Aberdeenshire North and Moray East, it could come down to a few hundred votes either way. That's exactly what we're seeing as well with the stuff I'm getting sent from pollsters and experts on this sort of stuff. Voting for any other party risks an SNP in these areas. It certainly does, and there's a few areas up north and on the borders where Tories could win seats from the SNP. I certainly hope they do so, and tactically voting in these areas is also very worthwhile. A lot of people think the tactical voting idea is just vote Labour. It's not at all. It is vote Labour in the places where they can either hold a seat or win it from SNP. But that's the same with all the parties. And the people that do these figures are quite clever, and they use a lot of stats. They even have people out on the ground asking for information and feedback. So they don't just rely on what other people say to compile their figures. And a lot of people have been asking me, because there's a few different sources for tactical voting with small differences. And I've been advocating the Tactical Voting Scotland website, and I'll put a link to that down the bottom. And there are a lot of knife edge seats in those. tacticalvotescotland.uk is a website. Just put your postcode in, it'll tell you who they recommend you vote for. And a lot of them are knife edge, particularly the Conservative ones, the ones that Conservative can win. So if people don't tactically vote in these areas, you might wake up to an SNP MP because you just think we should be voting Labour everywhere. That's simply not the case. It is in the majority of cases, but the tactical votescotland.uk website will bring up exactly who you should vote for just simply by putting your postcode in. And again, it's no guess. It's guesswork, obviously, but it's using a lot of statistics, and it's a lot of people think whoever came second the last seat time, if it's an SNP seat, that's you should vote for. But the last election was 5 years ago. A lot of things have changed in that 5 years. So it's using polling data and people in the street getting feedback from different local constituency areas, and they come up with these recommendations for you to tactically vote. So that's what I'll be doing, and that's what I hope the majority do. And if everybody done it, we would get a complete wipe-out. Think about it. That could be possible, but there are people who will just never tactically vote. So SNP will win some seats, or we could actually wipe them in one election. But that's what we're up to. Where are we? Yeah, the other thing that they've found with these polls is pretty bonkers. When it comes to issues that will most decide how Scots vote in the general election, health and National Health Service tops the list at 60% of people saying that's a priority. Cost of living coming in second, 52% of people saying that's important to them. And the economy is third and 35%. But breaking up the UK is actually fifth. Now bear in mind, a lot of people, it won't cross their mind because there's about just less than half the people in Scotland actually want independence. And those ones who want it, it's not even the top of their list. Or they would be at least third in that list, because cost of living is importantly 52% of the voting population, and the next thing is economy, and 35%, and that's third. So if 45% of people want independence and it was that important to them in a election, then they would be at least third. That's not the case. So despite John Swinney's best efforts, it's not the most important thing for a lot of, and the vast majority are Scots. So they've lost again by being a one trick pony. Let me see anything else here that's interesting. 17% of Scots, that's how many say that Skexit's top in their top 3 of election issues. And amongst those intending to vote SNP, it's only ranking 41%. So it's bonkers that they're putting so much time and effort trying to get elected on a single point that nobody's that bothered about, you know. But then that's the SNP, and recently I've considered that they're very, very poor at reading the room, and these figures stack that up, and I'm sure the figures, once we get to next Thursday night, we'll start counting votes, we'll see the exact same thing. So it's absolute mental for the SNP. They've made an arse of the campaign. They've made an arse of dealing with the country, particularly in the last few years with 3 different First Ministers, each of them having their own disasters that they've created. And Swinney just seems like he's losing trust. People losing trust in him, sorry. Each passing interview he does, where he's just flip-flopping and actually not answering most of the questions, to be perfectly honest with you, and just talking about absolute shite when he's asked a straight question, like, what is a woman? Like, what is, do you want to have more oil licences issued? Things like that, which are very, very important to people that I talk to. Just not want to give the answers. So, I'll slap into you, John. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification button. But most importantly of all, so as long as you're no John Swinney, the SNP, or the crackpots that still follow them. See everybody else. Have a great day. Cheery bye now.